All right, so we are in 2 Corinthians chapter 9. And if you remember last week, we were dealing with some of the basic fundamental aspects of giving. And what we're trying to do is to just say that it's not just in taking something of what you have financially, but it's a lifestyle. It's a basic philosophy of life. Some of the just general things that you just have to do, they make life worthwhile and enjoyable. You know, oftentimes when we read the Beatitudes, we hear that aspect where Jesus is saying, "Blessed is the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek, blessed are," so forth. And we often think of that word as being, well, that's how God blesses you. But the word actually means happy. And what God is saying, yes, I will bless you, because if you do those things, you will be happy, because that's how I made you. I made you so that when you help other people, when you are bringing forth things that add to your neighbor, and you're giving of what you have, you will be happy. That's the makeup that you are. Sometimes we wonder, well, what's the owner's manual of joy and peace and happiness? Well, it's all in the scripture. And one of the things about just having happiness is not always having your own interests in mind, but being able to focus on how do I make somebody else happy. And those things are key. And you'll find that as you live and as you move along and as you mature, that when you get to those points, when you recognize in life that, you know what, I'm never more happier than when I'm helping somebody else. And that's something that is true. We're going to kind of continue in that vein on today. It's a very short chapter, so we're going to touch on this, and then we'll do a little preview of chapter 10. But chapter 10, I think, is once again, I say this about a lot of chapters, but this is one of the most, I think, important chapters in the Bible. So we'll give a little preview about that for next week. But for right now, let's go ahead and look at chapter 9, 2 Corinthians. Let's take a look at
Chapter 9. For as touching the ministering to the saints, it is superfluous for me to write to you, for I know the forwardness of your mind, for which I boast of you to them of Macedonia, that Achaia was ready a year ago, and your zeal hath provoked very many. Yet have I sent the brethren, lest our boasting of you should be in vain in this behalf, that, as I said, ye may be ready. Lest haply, if they of Macedonia come with me and find you unprepared, we, and we say not ye, should be ashamed in this same confident boasting. Therefore I thought it necessary to exhort the brethren, that they would go before unto you, and make up beforehand your bounty, whereof ye had notice before, that the same might be ready, as a matter of bounty, and not as of covetousness. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. As it is written, he hath dispersed abroad, he hath given to the poor, his righteousness remaineth forever. Now he that ministereth seed to the sower both minister bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness, being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causeth through us thanksgiving to God. For the administration of this service not only supplieth the want of the saints, but is abundant also by many thanksgivings unto God, whilst by the experiment of this ministration they glorify God for your professed subjection unto the gospel of Christ, and for your liberal distribution unto them and unto all men, and by their prayer for you, which long after you for the exceeding grace of God in you. Thanks be unto God for his unspeakable gift.
All right. So there we go. Paul, once again, with his very expressive and eloquent way of explaining things. And oftentimes it's important to just go back and look and see, well, specifically what is Paul saying and how is he really approaching this aspect. So he gets into this once again. He's picking up from right where he left off in chapter 8. And as I had said on many occasions, and it's always important to reiterate that when this was initially written, it did not have chapters and verses in it. It was all one letter. So the division here, and so when I say he's picking up where he left off, it's just from a standpoint of how we view it and how it's breaking. This is all one thought that he's bringing forth. So he's continuing in this thought in chapter 9, where he says, "For as touching the ministering to the saints." Now, that's what he's talking about. That's the issue. He's talking about how we help one another. All right? And that should be something that we should be focusing on. How do I help? Where is my actual, what do I do that's added? Where am I giving increase to somebody's life? Good morning. Where am I giving some abundance to another person? All right? And that should be something that we should be focusing on. For it's touching ministering to the saints, it is superfluous for me to write unto you. All right? It's a little bit, something that has already been said, but I'm going to say it again, is what he's trying to say. For I know the forwardness of your mind, for which I boast of you to them of Macedonia, that Achaia was ready a year ago. So what he's saying is, the people that he's speaking of here, they were ready, they're looking to you and seeing what you were ready to do last year. And they were encouraged by that. And so he's saying that I'm looking forward to seeing how this thing that encouraged other people can actually be completed. Because sometimes a lot of things are started, good morning, and these things that are started encourages people, but they do need to be completed. All right, and so what Paul is basically saying here, this is a letter saying, in this particular chapter, I need you to make sure that what you started, we're in chapter 9, and what you were able to encourage other people in doing, that you are actually going to do and finish it. All right, so it's nice to see sometimes when people have good ideas and have plans and everything, and sometimes those good ideas and plans encourage people. But when you have those good ideas and you have those plans and you're encouraging people, you should do what you say you're going to do. All right, don't just have it in word only, but make sure it's in deed. All right, verse 3. Yet I have sent the brethren, lest your boasting of you should be in vain. All right, I'm sending people down there to make sure that these things are completed, because I know they shall be. And so since they're going to be completed, let me send somebody down there to receive it. All right? Because I don't want this to be in vain. Don't want it to go to waste. In vain in this behalf, that as I had said, ye may be ready. I want you to make sure that everything, all right, like I said, he's just making sure that things are going to happen according to how it's supposed to be. Verse 4. Lest happily, if they of Macedonia come with me and find you unprepared. Now that would be the disappointment. Paul is talking, he's bragging about them, he's talking about how they the ones that started all this, and then when he brings people down there, find out that they haven't even begun to do it. That would be very disappointing. That we say, not ye, should be ashamed in this confident boasting. So I don't want to be ashamed in the accolades that I've given about you. You know, I want to make sure. And we talked about that on last week. Sometimes when you recommend somebody and you say, hey, you know, I know somebody that knows how to fix cars. Well, you expect the guy, when your friend goes to the person who knows how to fix cars, that the person does what? Fixes the car. But it's also a two-way street, because when the person down goes and gets the car fixed, you expect that person to do what? Pay him. All right? And so there's and there's simplicity. It's not difficult. But it has to happen, because if these things don't happen, that just opens up a whole lot of problems. Opens up a whole lot of can of worms. And that's what the devil looks for. He looks for a little space where he can get a little toehold. And the Bible says we should not give what? We should not give him room. We should not give him space. Don't give any of that space to the devil so he can get in there and start operating. And so what Paul is doing, he's just closing all these little gaps, making sure that, so when all this thing, and you say, well, this is not really, don't seem like a real difficult situation, but still, you got to complete the little things in order for the big things to actually happen, all right? So, therefore, I thought it necessary to exhort the brethren that they would go before unto you and make up beforehand your bounty. So he said, I'm thinking it's a good thing for me to go before I come up there with all these folks, that somebody will go up there first and that they would gather all of the money. And remember, Paul also is keeping in mind that he don't want the money to be gathered when he gets there. He wants it all taken care of, because he's also expressing the fact that he don't want anybody to accuse him of saying that I took this money up for what? For myself. Paul said, I'm not taking it up for myself. All right. Wherefore ye have noticed before that the same might be ready as a matter of bounty and not of covetousness. All right. So this is something that we're doing. We know it's a bundle of money. It's an amount that everyone's agreeing, but it's not something to be done so that somebody else can covet for it. That's not what we're doing. I don't want the money. All right. We're taking this money and we're going to use it to help other people. All right. Verse 6. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly. And that's very self-explanatory. All right. So sometimes you say, well, I don't want to put the work in. Well, you're not going to get the effects. When you get 10 ears of corn and you eat all 10 of them, how much corn you going to have next year? You ain't going to have none. But if you get 10 ears of corn and you eat 5 and you plant 5, next year you're going to have more than 10, because each one of those corn produces what? It produces more than just one. It produces a lot. So, and if you always putting in more than what you're getting back, you will continue to what? To grow. All right, and that's the important part, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit further. Shall reap sparingly, but he that soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. All right, so we want to make sure that it's a good amount. All right, so we want our bounty to be full. Verse 7: every man according as he has been told to give. Is that what it say? What is? Every man according as he purposed in his heart. All right? So that means that you should already know what it is that you want to do. Nobody should tell you, you need to give this amount of money. You need to give that amount of money. No. Every man according as he purposed in his heart. So let him give. And why does Paul want everybody to give according to what? Because he says, not what? Grudgingly. Because if you give according to what you want to give, guess what you're going to do? You're going to give it happily. And you will be blessed for that. You will feel good about it. But when you give money, you say, man, I wish I... You ever bought something and then brought it home and then you realize it ain't worth the money you spend for it? It don't make you feel good, do it? You're like, man, this was a waste of money. And so whenever you give help to help the Lord, you always want to feel like, if I had to do it again, I'd do it again, and I wish I could even do more. Always have that attitude and that spirit when you're doing things, when you're giving, so that you'll have a good heart about what you did. You don't feel like, well, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have gave so much. You don't want to ever feel like that. All right? But unfortunately, that's not how it is today. They tell you to give till it hurt.
That's right.
Amen. They tell you got to be bleeding when you're done.
Oh, yeah.
All right? Not grudgingly, nor of necessity. So people tell you, we need the money. That ain't why I give. I don't give because you need it. Now, if I feel like I want to help the need, then I will give. And if I feel like I want to help the need in my heart, but I don't give just because I need. Now, y'all remember when what was his name? I forget the name of that preacher that said that if he don't collect $1 million, God's gonna kill him.
Kill him, yeah.
Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
He said, God told me if I don't collect this, if I don't raise $1 million by such and such date, God's going to kill me.
Okay.
And, it's a shame when people say that. I mean, some people say, well, we in America, we never negotiate with terrorists. Because that's a terrorist statement. You don't get this, we're going to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all don't help him raise his money, we're going to kill. That's ransom. It's kidnap, ransom. And so God don't work like that. So you can't let somebody produce a need and say, well, you got to do this, because if you don't do this, then you don't love the Lord, then you don't love God. And they're trying to produce that in you. And Paul is saying we don't give grudgingly, nor of necessity. Why? Because God loveth a cheerful giver. So you should be giving because I want to help this, I want to do this, it should always, but then our heart should be praying that God will give me vision as to what I should be helping. We should be wanting to help. See, now the problem with this, when you get the freedom like this, some people say, well, I don't feel like helping nothing. No, right now, nothing really make me happy, giving no money. Well, then that ain't helpful either, because now you are stagnating your own ability to be blessed in the sense of happiness, of peace and joy. You should be looking and wanting. Your spirituality should get you to the point to where you're growing in the Lord, to where you really want to be a neighbor to somebody. And remember when Jesus said, gave the story of the Good Samaritan, and he's talking about how this man went and helped this other man who was in a bad circumstance. And he said he was neighbor unto him because he bound up his wounds. He took him to an inn. He paid for it. He said, if it costs you even more, I'll come and I'll pay the difference. He saw a need that he wanted to help. And he felt good about doing it. He felt that that's the right thing to do. And that's part of how our giving should be. All right? We should want to help. But at the same time, don't let nobody make you feel guilty in giving, so you don't feel begrudged about it, nor produce a super necessity. All right? So make sure that you're focused on the fact that you're trying to learn how to give according to how God is dealing with you. Verse 8. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you. See? So when you give, what does God give us? He gives us grace. And that's the thing we should keep in mind. Everything we have is part of grace. Everything. Because what does the Bible say? The wages of sin is what?
Yeah.
All right. And the Bible also says that we were what? Born in
Sin.
and shaped in a. All right. So therefore, what is our payment? What payment should we be getting?
Death.
We should be getting death. But God's mercy, which did not give us what we deserve, then here comes grace, giving us what we cannot what? Earn. So God's going, I'm giving you grace every day. I give unto you all the time. I give you my grace. Abundant grace. Always giving unto you. All right? And it continues to flow. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all things. All sufficiency in all things. Sufficient. That's a nice word there. It didn't say overwhelming. It said what? Sufficient. You'll be all right. And let me tell you, when you go through the Gospels, just take a moment and just look and make notes how many times Jesus says, don't worry. Don't be anxious. Don't fret. That whole aspect of just trust God. Don't let your heart be troubled. He goes, why do you worry about raiment? He said, look at the lilies of the field. He goes, why are you worrying about what you're going to eat? He said, your Heavenly Father feeds the sparrows. He said, and if God clothes the grass, which is here today and gone tomorrow, cast in the fire, won't he clothe you, O ye of what? Little faith. See? And so here is the aspect of us being able to just trust God. And let me tell you, it's a whole lot to that. in a lot of areas we trust God very, and sometimes it's easier to trust God for salvation than it is to trust Him for living. Because for salvation, we know He got it. It's all on Him. But living is a co-op situation. He's doing some things every day, and every day I got to do some things. But then I got to trust Him when it don't look like it's going that well. And that's the difficult part sometimes for us. But He gives us a grace towards us all the time. That ye, having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. All right? Verse 9. As it is written, he that disperses abroad, he hath given to the poor. His righteousness remaineth for what? Forever. See, so you give to the poor. And what is the one thing that God gives us so we can stand, that Christ gives us so we can stand before the Father? He gives us His what?
Righteousness.
His righteousness. It's a gift. He gave it to us. Because when you think about all the mistakes that we make in life, all the things that we do wrong, all the bad things that we do, all the bad things that we think about, and all the things that's in our mind, and sometimes we don't look, which we're going to deal with next week. That's why I say chapter 10, let me tell you, that's going to be it. Because Paul's going to expose a lot of stuff, but it's important, but I'm not going to get ahead of that. But all that stuff that we have, that God just clears the table. He goes, you can't come before God like that. So Jesus says, I will cleanse that. And now, you still can't go to Him with what? Nothing. So I'm going to give you my righteousness. Here you go. Now, you can stand before Him with my credit. Right. You stand there with my situation. Right. And that's the important aspect, all right, that we have to have. And be aware of that God gives unto us things all the time. So therefore, we're trying to emulate Him. We should be giving. We should have an aspect of giving. Who am I helping? God gave me His righteousness because I can't produce my own righteousness. Well, what do I have, and this is the living part, that I know somebody else can't produce? They've been trying and they can't do it. They can't get it done. So I got to go help that person. I got to go do that. I'm going to give that person some assistance, because this is something that I can do. God's blessed me and given me a gift and talent here or there. And so I want to go and do that. All right? Verse 10. Now he that ministereth seed to the sower, both ministers bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruit of your righteousness. All right. So, what is he saying here? He says, now he that ministereth seed to the sower, all right, that's just being able to, once again, he's just being a little bit repetitive. Stuff that you what? That you plant, that you give out. We all know what seeds are. When you sow seed, all right. So he that ministers and gives that seed to the sower, in other words, you give it to somebody so they can go ahead and plant it properly. Both minister bread for your food and multiply your seed sown. All right. So the mystery in this is that it's like you giving somebody something and you're saying, take this and use it. You sow this. You go ahead and use it. Well, you're giving from what you have. But then it also does a funny thing that's said in here. He says it does what? Multiply your seed sown. Remember when Jesus was teaching to the multitude, and he asked the disciples, he goes, we need to feed these guys. What do we got to feed them? And they were all like, well, what are we going to do? We ain't got nothing here. There's no market buy. And he says, but there is somebody here that's got, a little lunch, a couple of fish and some bread. And so he took the little boy's lunch and told everybody to do what? Sit down.
Yeah.
We're going to feed him. So he took what was given to him and he did what with it?
Multiple.
Multiplied it. So that's another thing that we have to keep in mind. Sometimes you think, I'm not going to give. Because you know why? Because really, the only thing I can only give 2 or 3 minutes here or there, or $2 or $3, or just increase, just being a help. But when you give what you are able to give, it may seem like a little to you, but as long as you're willing to give, God will help it to multiply so it will meet the needs. And how does it happen? I have no idea. Because if I knew how God multiplied stuff, like Jesus multiplied that boy's lunch, then I'd say, okay, everybody bring your sandwiches, here we go. But I don't know how it works. But I do believe and trust and know that God knows what he's doing and he knows how it works. So therefore, just the act of giving helps the causes to be blessed. And it multiplies the seed. It multiplies the seed that is sown. And increase the fruit. All right? And it increases the fruit of your righteousness. You see that? So, and what he's saying is, you're going to get credit. Your tab of being a blessing is not the amount of what you gave, but it's the amount of what God was able to multiply it to. All right? And it's really a very simplistic aspect when you think about it. Because when you sow a seed, one grain of corn, when you plant it, does it come up as another 1 grain of corn? It comes up as what? A stalk. And then on the stalk are a whole bunch of what? Ears.
Yeah.
I don't know how many you usually get on a stalk, but it looked like they had like 5, 6 or so.
There's a lot.
12? I know it's a lot. I don't know how many it is. But then if it's 12, you got 1 grain. But now you got a stalk with 12 ears. All right? And then each of the ears got how many kernels of grain on it, of corn on it. You see how God multiplies?
All I know is it's a lot.
It's a whole lot. I don't know the numbers either, but that's the multiplication aspect that we have to keep in mind and envision. Sometimes when we think, well, I don't want to do because it ain't that much, and you'd be surprised how it's being multiplied. And God will, you'd be surprised how sometimes the devil will come in and tell you, He will come in, he'll be like, well, it ain't really about nothing. You might as well just, that ain't producing nothing. Why are you even wasting your time with that? And the devil will tell you that all the time, but then you have to keep in mind what God's word says. If you don't have a lot, the Bible says don't despise the day of what? Small things, small beginnings. And sometimes we get so hung up on the fact that everything got to be a big amount, a big event, a big process, and everybody's trying to get to that. I ain't gonna do nothing till I can step out. I want to step out right. I ain't gonna step out till I got the right car, got the right clothes, got the right house. And sometimes you just gotta say, you know what? It is what it is. Everybody would like to have whatever you want, but sometimes this is all we got, man. All we got is a couple of fish and a couple of pieces of bread. And Jesus says, that's all I need. Just give it to me. You give me what you got and watch me multiply it. You see? And the thing about it is that you got to leave it alone, don't you? See, if you plant that corn and every day you go dig it up to see how it's doing, guess what's going to happen? It's never going to grow. You got to put it in the ground and do what? Trust and believe that all the mechanisms from the nutrients in that ground and the rain and what God has already put into that seed, it will do its job. And you just got to let it go and let it happen. All right? And sometimes that's difficult for us to do because we want to see. We want to kind of walk by sight, but the Bible says we should do what? Walk by faith, not by sight. So put the thing in the ground, cover it up so you can no longer what? See it. And let God's thing happen. Let him do his stuff. And you'd be surprised when it's all said and done. Now, some things you plant in the ground come up 2 weeks later. You start seeing a little shoot come up. Some things you plant in the ground, take a long time. Now I don't know a whole lot, but what I've been told was they said that a bamboo tree, when you plant a bamboo, you got to wait a couple years for it to come up. You know, and so you look at that, you go, man, that thing been sitting down there for. But when it does come up, they say that thing starts growing. It just takes off. Right? But what's happening? There is growth happening, but you still can't see it. You still got to trust it. But the growth is happening, going where? Down. That seed is growing roots and growing down. You still can't see it, but stuff is happening. But eventually, it breaks through the ground, and then you can be able to see it. And now I can see now. It's definitely going to grow. So that whole aspect of our giving and of our doing for the Lord and things that we give unto one another, of our gifts, talents, and treasures, it is what it is. Whatever it is that you have. And that's why Paul said, don't let nobody make you feel like you have to give this amount. Well, there's no need in you doing anything unless you can start with this. If you can't start with this amount, then wait till you get that. No, do what you can do, whatever it may be, whatever gift, whatever talent, whatever ability, whatever amount it may be it finance or time or energy or effort, whatever it is that God has given you to do, you do it. Right? And it may be times when you may feel like, I wish I could do more, but that's okay. At a certain point in time, maybe He will give you more to do. But you got to keep in mind that what you're doing is multiplying past what you see. All right? Because a lot of times what you don't recognize is, we go back to the corn, you planted that corn and it came up with the 12 ears, and then you take 3 or 4 and you give to somebody else. Well, he took that 4 that you gave him, he ate 3, but he took that one that you gave him and took the corn off of that one ear, and he planted all of those. Now look at what he done started him a little corn row. And he took, then when his came up, he took 5 or 6 or 7 of those stalks, kept for himself, but took 5 or 6 or 7 of those stalks and gave to somebody else. Or gave them different. Now you can see exponential growth. You see how that's happening? It just continues to just fan out. But it all started with that one little grain that you planted, and then you took a couple of your little things from your one little stalk and gave to somebody else. Now you don't see this guy over here now. He's planting food for the whole state, but you have no idea that all that came from what? Your one little grain. All right, and so it's important for us to always keep in mind, God a lot of times is doing stuff beyond what we can do. So we need to stop what the aspect of how people say you got to come big or don't come at all. It's got no. That's the mindset of today. Do what you got to do. Do your thing. Now, and what that does is it encourages you to go ahead and do what it is that you know that's in your heart. Sometimes you're waiting for it to get perfect, just go and just do the little stuff, do the small things, all right, and watch God still multiply what you're doing. Verse 11, being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causes through us thanksgivings to God. All right? So once all this happens and we see how we are being enriched by us helping to enrich others, all of this produces what? Thanksgivingness to God. Because I'm happy that I was able to help, and I'm saying what? Thank God. But then the person that I helped is saying, well, I thank God for that person. So what happens? God is being thanked all the way around, you see, on something that we do. For the administration of this service is not only supplied the want of the saints, but is abundant also by many thanksgivings to God. You see that? He kind of reiterated that. It's not only supplying the want and the need of the communities, of the people around us, but it's also producing thanksgivings to God. While by experiment of this ministration, all right, and sometimes that's what it seems like, right? I'll tell you, sometimes you just feel like, I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. Well, what are you doing? Man, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm doing what I'm doing. It feels like an experiment. It feels like a, it's not like, oh, you're not super, have things outlined as to how it's going to go, what's going to be the outcome, what's going to be the result. It's just like, well, I'm going, I'm doing, I'm going to try this, I'm going to do this. It seems like an experiment, because you don't know. But that's because you're doing what? Trusting God. All right? While by the experiment of this ministry, they glorify God for your professed subjection unto the gospel of Christ. All right? So just doing it, you putting yourself in line, being subjected to what Scripture says. All right? And you're finding out that God's going to be glorified because of that. All right? For your liberality, distribution, your liberal distribution unto them and unto all men. All right? God's being glorified because you just doing something. You don't know really how it's going to turn out, but you're doing it because you're being subjected under what God is, and God has been gracious to you and has given to you His righteousness, and this liberality is being distributed and helping out, and God's being glorified, but it's also helping all men. And you say, well, I'm not helping all men. Well, wait a minute. Let's go back to our analogy. The guy with the one little corn gave out to somebody else, got a roll, somebody else got a little farm. Now he's doing what? He's feeding multitudes. But that one little grain is what started it all. All right? So once again, we got to keep that in mind. We don't know how it all going to pan out. Verse 14. And by their prayer for you, which long after you, for the exceeding grace of God in you. All right? And that's another aspect of it. And by their prayer for you. All right? We should be praying one for another. That's one of the gifts that God gives us that we can do. It's just, and we should be so creative with our prayer. We should be artists in praying. The needs that come up. It's like when our brother, he hears of something on the news, he immediately starts praying for that family. He don't know those people, but he's like, that's my trigger for praying. And you got to find little things. I think I had mentioned to you one time that a lot of times when I see people that are broke on the side of the road, I don't know how to fix cars, so me stopping there, just be two people stopping. I don't know what I'm doing. But I pray that God would help them and everything. But then you know what? I was going to work one day and I saw some. You know how you look and you see these skid marks, and you can tell, and then you see the rails all bent up on the side. Well, and I remember I didn't see that there. I'm like, wow, somebody must have had an accident there. And I was thinking about that, and then immediately I just started saying, well, Lord, whoever it is, bless them, help them, with their family, their finances, and little triggers. And then you find the little things that you do. It means something. Well, what does that mean? I don't know. And that's the beauty of it, because I give it to God. But God tells me, be liberal with your prayers. Pray what? Without ceasing. For all things. And so we have to be imaginative. And we're going to talk about that, our imagination, on next week. We got to be imaginative and have a desire to just, how do I kind of put that out there? Because the more I pray for other people and for other circumstances, the more God will just work in things. And why and how? I'm not sure how. I'm not sure why. But I just know we should do it. Yes, sir.
I remember one time I was like troubled, and I had met this pastor, this Methodist pastor. And he was somebody I kind of looked up to. I really liked him. I liked the spirit and the way he was. And he said, and most people won't do it, but he said, brother, we was in like Home Depot or something, and he was like, and he was looking around like he wanted a little area, and he just stopped and he just prayed for me. And I thought that was so it was so uplifting to me that he had that much compassion to pray. I mean, he didn't go loud and screaming, he just said a little prayer. He said, brother, be blessed. And that just really encouraged my heart. People don't realize what prayer can do for other people. It can really encourage them, and it just, I'll never forget him for that.
Yeah, that's important. And so we see that these things is, the aspect of prayer. It's something that you can give. And what Paul is saying here, and Jesus has said it so often, is that you always have something to give. There is no one that doesn't have, because you can always give of your prayer. But the thing that we often think, well, that's all I can give, I guess I'll give it. But it's not, that's all. That's a big piece. It's a major piece. But oftentimes, it's not focused on that we should be doing that, giving that one to another, praying for one another, praying for circumstances and situations, and praying for our young people, praying for married couples, and praying for our teenagers, and praying for these kids that are in college, and praying for these kids that are in daycare. Your imagination can just be limitless. But that is something that unfortunately is not so much focused on and don't get as much attention. And people don't look at it as being, all that, glamorous or glorious, whatever word you want to look at it. But it's absolutely necessary and should happen. And when you do those prayers, you'll be surprised how good you feel, because you cannot give to other people and not be blessed. And by the definition of what blessed means by the Bible, godly joy, godly happiness, godly peace within yourself. Right? And there is an aspect where you have to make sure that your prayer is in line with what your actions is. Because even James picks up on it. Because sometimes people try to find little ways. He says, you're going to tell somebody, be full and I'll pray for you. When you got a freezer full of sandwiches.
Right.
All right. So no, that ain't right either. So when you know you can't affect the situation but by prayer, then you have to pray. Remember when the man came to Jesus and said, my son has a demon, and I went to your disciples and they could not cast him out? So then Jesus went and he cast the devil out, and then the disciples came to him and said, well, why couldn't we cast him out? This don't come by just support. This comes by what? Prayer and fasting. So there's certain things that only prayer can do. But then you have to pray for that. All right? When you have a situation and sometimes you have a sickness or a problem on your job, or a problem with finances or whatever the case may be, and you've done all that you can do. All right? But you still got to do what? Continue to what? Saturate the situation with prayer. And ask God to bless it. Let His will be done. And that's the thing that you have to do with prayer. Is I'm praying for situations. I would like to see it happen like this. But the bottom line is, what? Your will be done. And that's the key. And then you trust God on how it's going to be. So we'll be talking more about that in some coming chapters. All right? But 14 and 15 together, let's just see that, and then we're going to be done here. It says, and by their prayer for you, which long after you for the exceeding grace of God in you. Verse 15, thanks be unto God for His unspeakable gift. See how he talks, how he finishes that little portion up? Who gives the biggest gift? God does. Thanks be unto God for His unspeakable gift. I can't even begin to tell you how much God gives to us. Right? And that's what he talks about. All right. So when we get into our next chapter, we're going to be dealing with the chapter 10. We're going to be dealing with the mind, the spiritual warfare, the mindset, the spiritual aspect of things, the imaginations that we have as individuals, and how that works. So next week's going to be kind of interesting. I think we will find ourselves dealing with something that is powerful. But you can't get to chapter 10 unless you're doing chapter 8 and 9. The little things. You got to take care of these little things first. All right? It's like building a house. People come in the house. You ever have somebody come in the house and go, man, that is a beautiful foundation. Ain't nobody paying attention to the foundation. They're going to go look at the kitchen, look at the refrigerator, all that. And those are nice things, and everybody wants to have those things, right? And look at the wood floors and the cathedral ceiling and the blood. They don't just go on and on and on and on about all the ones. Well, let me tell you something. You put a bad foundation in that house, that's it. It ain't gonna happen. So this prayer, this aspect of giving, and don't buy into what people say today that giving is all about money. Yes, you can give money. But the thing that Jesus was focused on when it came to money was not so much that people gave a lot. He was focused on a lady that just gave a little bit because he was just giving of what she had. And so it's not just money, but it's giving of all things. Because God don't give us, the most important gift that God gives us is not money. Thank God for a job, right? But his greatest gift is what? Salvation. All right, so that's the gift. The fact that we are able to stand before the Father with the gift and clothing and the righteousness of Christ, that's a good gift. But we do have to keep in mind that there is so much that we can do, so many things that we can affect just by our ability to focus on those little things. Then, once we built that really beautiful and strong and sufficient foundation, now we can really begin to put some things on there that are still part of what God's trying to do. But a lot of times they gather the attention of other people, which is fine. We don't mind that, but we still got to make sure we got that foundation going, and that's part of what has to happen. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. If not, we're going to stop.